Donald Trump recently held a rally in Coachella, California, and during that rally, we learned that even celebrities can be indoctrinated by the MAGA cult. But if you end up getting anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. I'm trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. Now, as far as celebrity endorsements go, I would venture to say that Democrats probably enjoy more celebrity support compared to Republicans, but that's not to say that Republicans enjoy zero celebrity endorsement, because during this Coachella rally, Dennis Quaid got up on stage and he proved to the world that he is living in the same delusion that the next MAGA cult member is. So let's go ahead and take a look at this speech, and we'll go ahead and kick things off by Dennis Quaid trying to say that, you know what, guys? It's time to pick a side, okay?
I'm here today to tell you that it's time to pick a side. Are we going to be a nation that stands for the Constitution or for TikTok? Are we going to be a nation of law and order or wide open borders? Which is it? Because it's time to pick a side.
It continues to blow my mind that these people think that Donald Trump is somehow the law and order candidate. This is a guy that's been convicted of 34 different felonies, and he tried to overturn a free and fair election. He's being charged all over the country for those crimes. Not to mention, he's also the guy who said he wants to suspend the Constitution based on the lie that the 2020 election was somehow stolen from him. I mean, come on. Do you guys remember this post from Donald Trump where he said, "A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections." So how is it possible that somebody like Dennis Quaid can even possibly think that Donald Trump is the law and order candidate who is going to somehow abide by the Constitution when he has already proved that that is not going to be the case, that it wasn't the case last time? It continues to boggle my mind that these people continue to believe this. But let's go ahead and move on to Dennis Quaid trying to say that, you know, the issues are pretty much the same as when I was voting for Reagan. I mean, what is he even talking about?
It's amazing how the issues of the 1980 election are very similar to what they are today. I don't know if those of you who are of a certain age here probably remember the inflation that was going on back then. 20% interest on a bank loan. We had Iran hostages. We were a nation in decline. That's what they told us. Ronald Reagan came along and said, no, we're not a nation in decline. We're going there. And we followed him. The same with Trump, with President Trump, my favorite president of the 21st century.
Again, this guy is just living in a delusion. Donald Trump talks poorly about the country all of the time. He says we're a nation in decline, we're a failing nation, you're not going to have a country anymore unless you vote for me. And I mean, what is he even talking about as far as inflation goes? If you go up to a MAGA supporter these days, I'm sure they will tell you that inflation is up over 20%. But we just got the numbers from last month showing that inflation continues to trend down and that we are right about at that sweet spot that we want.
Well, consumer prices in the U.S. are gradually cooling off. According to the latest figures from the Labor Department, the annual inflation rate hit 2.4% in September from a year prior. That's the lowest it has been since February of 2021. It also brings us closer to the Federal Reserve's goal of getting inflation down to 2% after it peaked at about 9% 2 years ago.
Again, so as we can see, inflation is right about where we want it. And the Biden and Harris administration, to their credit, has guided us towards this soft landing. So when people like Quaid try to say that inflation is still out of control and somehow Donald Trump is going to fix it, they're just not living in reality. And if we need an example of Donald Trump slandering the country, we have one right here.
That's all I can say. We're a nation in decline. You know, we were talking about that before. My phrases are copied so much, right? I use the term oftentimes in closing, we are a nation in decline. We are a failed nation. And I think it's a beautiful phrase, although I don't like the topic very much.
And this is something that Donald Trump says at nearly every single rally or every single press conference. He is constantly saying that we are a failing nation and we're not going to have a country anymore unless you elect me. Donald Trump doesn't care about the outcome of this country unless he is president. And that is not the type of leader that we should be electing. Call me crazy. Let's go ahead and move on to Dennis Quaid asking the question, well, are you guys better off than you were 4 years ago? But again, delusion.
I'm going to ask you a question that Reagan asked America back then. And I think it's the question that got him elected. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? 4 years ago, under President Trump, we had energy. We were an energy independent nation. We had cheap gas. We were actually exporting oil to our allies and our friends. Today, Putin is making money hand over fist, selling oil that he uses to pay for his Soviet-style comeback war that he has with Ukraine. And while we're shutting down our pipelines over here and capping our wells and begging Saudi Arabia and Venezuela to will you please sell us some oil? We're kind of short right now. Today, and what about inflation? What about it? You know, when he left office, inflation was under 2%. That's like nothing. It was free money almost. Today, all you got to do is go to the grocery store, go to the gas station, go to the department store. There's evidence enough right there that we know that fairy tale called Harris-Bidenomics just doesn't work.
These people want to memory hole that we went through a pandemic. 4 years ago, our economy was crashing. Unemployment was going through the roof. And Donald Trump was an incompetent leader as far as getting us through the pandemic. So yes, I would say that I am better off now than I was 4 years ago. And they want to bring up inflation and gas prices, but we even know that right now, under the Biden administration, we are producing more gas and oil than ever before. I mean, just look at this chart and you can see that we even surpassed Trump's numbers when it comes to oil production. And I think if we scroll down here, our natural gas production is through the roof. We are energy independent. We are a net exporter of energy. This is why we continue to say that these people are not living in reality. And they're so enclosed in their echo chamber that when they're confronted with facts on the ground, like I've just showed you, they just don't know what to do with it. They've chosen to believe their cult leader than the actual cold, hard truth that is in reality. It's quite sad. And when it comes to gas prices, gas is about to fall under $3 nationwide average.
But now experts say the national average is on track to drop below $3 a gallon next month for the first time in more than 3 years.
As we approach Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's possible the national average could fall to as little as $2.75 a gallon.
So again, everybody can look at the data. They can look at the national averages. Yes, we had a spike in gas prices after the pandemic. But if you look right now, things are heading in the right direction. The economy is doing good by all of the major metrics that we normally use to measure an economy. So I would say that yes, I am doing better now than I was 4 years ago. And it's not even close. And the country as a whole is doing much better than it was 4 years ago. He's also trying to say, Dennis Quaid, he's trying to say that, well, 4 years ago we had a secure border. Let's go ahead and take a listen there.
4 years ago, we had a secure border. We were on our way to even doing more and having a wall. That's what a nation is. It has a wall. Every other nation on earth has got one, but I guess it's like voter ID. You don't need it in this country for.
Okay, not most countries have border walls. I think the last time I looked it up, I think maybe 40 countries have actual border walls. So I don't even know where he is trying to get that statistic from. Not every country has border walls. And as far as border crossings go, they did spike after the pandemic, but they are dramatically decreased, and they are now at Trump levels. I mean, if you look at here, you've got May of 2019, there was a massive spike, and we are well below that. So, again, these people are living in a delusion. They do not know what is true because they've chosen to surround themselves in this echo chamber that is filled with misinformation, disinformation. They've chosen to believe Donald Trump over their own eyes. And I would say it's quite sad. And I would say probably the saddest part of this speech was when he talked about his undocumented immigrant housekeeper. Let's go ahead and listen to that really quick.
I'd like to personally talk about a very dear friend and family member, really, of ours, my housekeeper, Josie. She was here illegally for over a decade, using her sister's identification, working for us. She couldn't go back to Mexico because she couldn't get back in if she went home to see her parents. She couldn't take a plane ride. She was always living in fear that she was going to get pulled over. She was the safest driver you ever saw. And when Trump was elected, she was in fear that she was going to be sent back to her country, to Mexico. I told her, I said, Josie, no, you're not. That's not what he's talking about. He wants people to come here the right way. I'm going to become your sponsor, and so we started it right now. She has her green card today, and she so wants to get her citizenship so she can vote for Donald Trump.
We see this time and time again. You have an illegal immigrant, as they would say, that is helping Dennis Quaid's family, so somehow it's okay. But we know for an absolute fact that Donald Trump has done nothing but talk poorly about all immigrants. He's talking about mass deportation if he gets reelected. This shouldn't be a secret to anybody. And he's trying to say that, no, Donald Trump wouldn't deport somebody like you, but yes, he would. He's even talking about revoking temporary protected status and deporting legal immigrants. So why would you think that he wouldn't deport somebody like your housekeeper? It is quite wild. Here's Donald Trump talking about those mass deportations.
On day one, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. We have no choice.
And this is something we are hearing at every single rally. Donald Trump spends the majority of the time dehumanizing immigrants. He doesn't distinguish between undocumented immigrants and legal immigrants. And like I said, he's even talking about revoking protective status so he can deport legal immigrants. This is one of the main promises that he is running on, is mass deportations. And they've got a plan for how they want to carry that out. Here's Stephen Miller talking about exactly how that would work.
Then in terms of personnel, you go to the red state governors and you say, give us your National Guard. We will deputize them as immigration enforcement officers. The Alabama National Guard is going to arrest illegal aliens in Alabama, and the Virginia National Guard in Virginia. And if you're going to go into an unfriendly state like Maryland, well, then it would just be Virginia doing the arrest in Maryland, right? Very close, very nearby.
So imagine what he is saying there. He's saying if there's a blue state who doesn't want to use their National Guard to carry out Trump's plan for mass deportations, that he's going to send in National Guard from other states to try to carry out those mass deportations. This would be utter chaos. And not to mention, you're going to have armored vehicles rolling down the streets, knocking down people's doors, and ripping families apart. And it's going to have a huge impact on our economy. Inflation will probably go through the roof, not to mention the actual cost of carrying out something like mass deportations. I've seen estimates well over $300 billion just to try to do deportations in that manner. It would be absolutely insane. And Dennis Quaid's housekeeper is not going to be protected from that. We know that there is no good way to distinguish between an undocumented immigrant and a legal immigrant. So there will surely be mix-ups, and there will be American citizens that are ripped away from their families during these mass deportations. It would be an absolute stain on our country. So I thought this was interesting. Obviously, Dennis Quaid has fallen victim to the MAGA cult. He's living in the same delusion that the rest of MAGA is, and it's really quite sad to see. He just spun falsehood after falsehood after falsehood, and we were able to refute each one of his points with some simple data lookup. I mean, how do we fix this? When you've got such a huge contingent of society that is believing in a reality that doesn't exist, what are our next steps? That's what I want to know. That's what I've been thinking about. Anyway, I'll leave it there, guys. If you got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. Like I said, I'm trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. If you want to learn how Donald Trump uses these rallies to spin false realities for his MAGA supporters, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.